Cunningham out there on a damn recruiting mission. I don't know how true that is, obviously not, but I saw this video. The first time I scrolled through this video, I was like, oh, this is just they said Erica Wheeler and Lexi Hole thing. But Adidas Hoops got them in together. At the end of the day, it's one of
that right there is the part nobody really wants to say out loud. We could be looking at a WNBA season that never actually starts. Training camps are supposed to open, schedules are supposed to roll out, and fans are ready. But behind the scenes, there's real uncertainty. Players don't fully know what's coming next. And that unity everyone keeps talking about? It might not be as solid as it sounds. In public, the message is strong. You have voices like Natasha Cloud saying, "Give us what we're asking for, or we don't play." That's a bold stance. It sends a clear signal that players are serious about better pay, better travel, and long-term security. From the outside, it looks like a united front. But labor negotiations are rarely that simple. Not every player is in the same position financially. Not everyone has endorsement deals or max contracts. Some are fighting just to stay on a roster. Some are on short-term deals. Some are supporting families. When the pressure builds and paychecks are on the line, principles can start to collide with reality. That's where the uncomfortable word comes in: scabs. Players who would be willing to accept whatever agreement is offered just to keep the season alive. Not because they don't care about the bigger picture, but because they may not have the luxury to hold out. When you don't have the same leverage, the risks feel different. It's easy to talk about solidarity when everyone benefits equally. It's harder when the stakes aren't shared the same way. That's the tension no one wants to admit. If negotiations drag on and the threat of a missed season becomes real, the pressure won't just be on the league. It'll be inside locker rooms too. And that's when we'll find out how united everyone really is.
Randomly rock up into play for teams, and personal relationships, and I don't mean relationship, but like in terms of like friendships, that does a lot of the time you see players end up on similar teams. Like, if we're being real, there's a 0.0% chance that if Sanaya Rivers wasn't on the Sun, that Marina Mabrey...
Now pay attention to this. Sophie Cunningham and Erica Wheeler together at All-Star Weekend. At first glance, it just looks like two former teammates catching up, laughing, enjoying the event. Nothing unusual. That's what All-Star is for, right? Players reconnecting, taking photos, vibing. But look a little closer. This might not be just friendly conversation. Could be something more strategic. Because here's the pattern. Kelsey Mitchell spending time around Easy Eye Magbecker. Aaliyah Boston building a bond with Tiffany Hayes. Sophie Cunningham linking up with Erica Wheeler. When you step back and connect the dots, it doesn't feel random anymore. Feels intentional. The Indiana Fever aren't only shaping their roster through front office meetings and formal negotiations. They're doing it through relationships, through conversations at events, through shared dinners, through moments that don't look official but absolutely carry weight. And in a league as small as the WNBA, that matters. There aren't hundreds of degrees of separation. Everyone knows everyone. Players have either been teammates, opponents, overseas partners, or training camp competitors at some point. Word travels fast. Trust spreads through personal experiences, not just contracts. When a player is deciding where to sign, money is important. Role is important. But so is comfort. So is chemistry. So is knowing someone in that locker room already has your back. That's where recruitment gets interesting. It doesn't always happen in boardrooms. Sometimes it happens courtside at All-Star Weekend. Sometimes it happens in a casual conversation that looks like nothing special. And for the Fever, this approach makes sense. They have young stars. They have momentum. They have visibility. Now they're layering that with connection building. Because in a tight-knit league, relationships can close deals that paperwork alone can't.
Fever, and unfortunately, I don't think DeWanna Bonner can deal with that. I genuinely think it broke. I think that first game of the season broke DeWanna Bonner. That's my belief. My belief is that first game of the season broke DeWanna Bonner. The investigation, the bullshit investigation, her, like, the fact that her fiance or her partner, I don't know if they're married, came out and said that they believed Angel. Angel never made any accusations that they...
Here's what makes the Fever situation so interesting. If they actually manage to build the roster people are hinting at, we're not just talking about a solid playoff team. We're talking about a group that could realistically compete for a championship. Think about the fit. Pair Easy Eye Magbeger next to Aaliyah Boston. That's one of the few true 5 to 4 frontcourt combinations that really complements Boston's skill set. Boston does her best work with strength, positioning, and touch around the rim. She thrives when she doesn't have to guard every inch of space by herself. Magbeger brings length, mobility, and elite shot blocking. She can protect the rim and switch when needed. On paper, that pairing makes sense. Then you look at the perimeter. Add Sophie Cunningham or Lexi Hull for toughness and spacing. Keep Kelsey Mitchell's scoring. Put the ball in Caitlin Clark's hands to run the offense. Suddenly, you've got shooting, playmaking, interior presence, and defensive versatility. If Tiffany Hayes and a young contributor like KK Timpson are coming off the bench, that's depth. Real depth. That's not just a team fighting for the 6th or 7th seed. That's a squad built to win multiple playoff series. But here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Every player connected to this vision would have to choose Indiana knowing exactly what comes with it. In 2025, signing with the Fever doesn't just mean joining a young, rising team. It means stepping into a spotlight. It means dealing with constant national attention. It means absorbing criticism, social media noise, and automatic backlash from fans who already have strong opinions. Some players thrive in that environment. Others would rather avoid it completely. So the real question isn't just about cap space or fit. It's about willingness. Are those players ready to embrace the pressure that comes with Indiana right now? Because talent might build the roster, but mindset will determine whether it actually happens.
If you join the Indiana Fever, you have to realize that a lot of people are going to dislike you just because you joined the Fever, and you have to be able to kind of deal with that. Hence why Erica Wheeler, who was a vet, was probably hated on for playing with Caitlin Clark for that season. Sophie Cunningham just doesn't give a fuck, to be honest. Sid Colson went from being universally loved by a group of people to being hated by that same group of people that loved her in the past, but also has now got a much bigger fan base than she ever had because of new fans who like her for joining the Indiana Fever. And
this is the part people outside the Fever fan base don't fully grasp. The noise on the outside and the reality inside that locker room are two completely different worlds. When you sign with Indiana right now, you're not just choosing a team. You're stepping into a storm. You inherit critics you've never met. You absorb backlash that has nothing to do with your performance, your attitude, or your character. Sometimes the reaction isn't about what you did. It's about the jersey you're wearing. We've already seen how that plays out. Erica Wheeler experienced it firsthand. For years, she was viewed as a steady, respected veteran. Then she joined a roster with Caitlin Clark, and suddenly the narrative shifted. She went from being appreciated to being questioned, criticized, even villainized in certain corners of the internet. Not because she changed as a player. Not because she changed as a person. The only real difference was the spotlight and the expectations that came with that uniform. The same thing happened with players like Sydney Colson. One day widely liked and embraced. The next polarizing. Same personality. Same style of play. Different jersey, different reaction. That kind of shift can mess with you. Social media doesn't just critique performance anymore. It personalizes everything. Can wear players down mentally. It can fracture confidence. And for some, it absolutely has. So now the real question becomes this. Would someone like Erica Wheeler willingly step back into that environment? She knows what it feels like. She's already lived through the praise turning into pressure. Signing with Indiana in this moment means accepting that reality up front. It's not just about basketball fit. It's about emotional resilience. It's about whether a player believes the opportunity outweighs the noise. Because with the Fever, the spotlight isn't optional. It comes with the contract.
that first game of the season broke DeWanna Bonner. That's my belief. My belief is that first game of the season broke DeWanna Bonner. The investigation, the bullshit investigation, her, like, the fact that her fiance or her partner, I don't know if they're married, came out and said that they believed Angel. Angel never made any accusations that they believed Angel. Basically to say, yes, the Indiana Fever fans were racist. And I'm sorry, like, there's no way that DeWanna Bonner was going to be able to stay in Indiana after her partner came out and said that their fans are racist. Like there's no.
Let's talk about what reportedly happened with Alana Smith, because this is where outside noise can turn into something much heavier. It started with that first game of the season. There was controversy and investigation, non-stop media coverage. Every headline added fuel. Then things escalated when her partner publicly said they believed Angel Reese's claims about racist behavior from Fever fans. Not that the claims should be examined, not that they deserved investigation. They said they believed them. In a market like Indiana, that changes everything. Fair or not, once a player's partner openly supports accusations against the team's own fan base, the relationship between player and supporters becomes strained. For many fans, it felt personal. And in a league where fan engagement is intense and constant, that tension doesn't just disappear. After that, Smith's performance reportedly dipped. Whether it was coincidence or pressure is hard to say. But fans began criticizing her play more loudly. Every missed shot, every defensive lapse became magnified. And from her perspective, it may have felt like confirmation of what her partner had suggested, that the environment was hostile. From the fans' perspective, her struggles validated their frustration. It became a cycle. Then there were reports that Smith engaged in direct messages with social media accounts that had been critical or even abusive. Instead of ignoring the noise, she appeared to step into it. Liz Thomas, after joining the Fever, was also seen interacting with some of the same online accounts. That's where things get complicated. When players begin engaging directly with hostile corners of social media, the line between external criticism and internal reaction blurs. The pressure doesn't stay outside anymore. It follows you into the locker room, into your mindset, into your performance. And here's the uncomfortable part. Sometimes players begin to see the franchise itself as the antagonist in their own story. Instead of separating online noise from team reality, it all blends together. In a high-visibility market like Indiana right now, that dynamic can spiral quickly. And once trust between player and fan base fractures, rebuilding it becomes incredibly difficult.
This is one of those funny things that people don't realize when it comes to the Indiana Fever, is that the outside noise versus what's going on the inside are very different. Like, there are certain players, if you join the Indiana Fever, you have to realize that a lot of people are going to dislike you just because you joined the Fever, and you have to be able to kind of deal with that. Hence why Erica Wheeler, who was a vet, was probably hated on for playing with.
Marina Mabrey is a perfect example of how much personal relationships shape roster decisions in the WNBA. Last season, she made it clear she didn't want to stay in Connecticut. Reports suggested she pushed hard for a change and wasn't shy about her feelings. From the outside, it looked like a basketball issue, maybe system fit, maybe role, maybe contract concerns. But now, with Dejanai Carrington still on the Sun, there's real talk that Mabrey could return. And if that happens, it likely won't be because the offensive scheme suddenly fits better or because the contract numbers change dramatically. It'll be about comfort. It'll be about chemistry. It'll be about who you actually want to share a season with. That's the part people underestimate. In this league, teams are small. You're not one of 15 anonymous players on a massive roster. You're constantly around the same group of people. You practice together every day. You travel on the same flights. You sit next to each other in film sessions. You spend months living in the same city, often far from extended family. Over time, that closeness magnifies everything, good and bad. If you genuinely like your teammates, the grind feels lighter. If there's tension or distrust, it can make the season feel twice as long. So when someone like Mabrey weighs her options, it's not just about usage rate or playoff odds. It's about daily life. It's about whether she feels supported. It's about whether there's someone in that locker room she trusts and connects with. In bigger leagues, personality conflicts can get lost in the shuffle. In the WNBA, they can define your entire experience. That's why relationships aren't just a side note in roster construction. Sometimes they are the foundation.
Well, how liked Sophie Cunningham is amongst players. How liked Sophie Cunningham is amongst former teammates. Like, whatever about the Phoenix Mercury, you know, the crowd booing her and all that stuff, like, how liked she is amongst those former Mercury teammates. Like how liked Aaliyah Boston is amongst her former teammates. It's one of those weird things where it's like the Fever, if they can manage to get a whole group of players together, that aren't in the like WNBA cliques. Like, fuck UConn players. Don't sign a single UConn player. Fuck that shit.
So here's the bigger lesson for the Fever when it comes to building this roster. Fit isn't just about talent. It's about culture, alignment, and mindset. Some fans have gone as far as saying the team should avoid signing players from certain college pipelines altogether. Not because of ability, but because of the networks and loyalties that sometimes come with them. Programs like UConn have deep roots in the league. Their alumni are connected to established veterans, media figures, and long-standing power circles within the WNBA. That history isn't a bad thing, but it can come with built-in perspectives about how the league should operate. Right now, Indiana sits at the center of a major shift. The fan base has exploded. The spotlight is brighter than ever. With that growth has come tension between longtime followers and new supporters. Some players are comfortable navigating that divide. Others may feel caught in the middle. South Carolina players, for example, are often viewed differently in this conversation because Aaliyah Boston is already a cornerstone in Indiana. That connection feels more seamless. It doesn't carry the same symbolic baggage in the eyes of some fans. Whether that perception is fully fair or not, it shapes how people think about chemistry. The key for the Fever isn't really about avoiding one school or favoring another. It's about identifying players who can handle the current climate. They need athletes who either tune out the external noise completely or understand and accept that the league is evolving. The WNBA is growing fast. The audience is changing. The coverage is louder. That reality isn't going away. What Indiana can't afford is another situation where a talented player walks into a cultural mismatch. When someone feels out of sync with the market, the fan base, or the direction of the franchise, performance can suffer. Confidence can dip. Narratives can spiral. That's what people point to when they mention Smith. Not a lack of talent, but a lack of alignment. In a moment this sensitive and high-profile, roster construction isn't just about skill sets. It's about finding players who fit the present version of the league, not the one from 5 years ago. Because in Indiana right now, the spotlight isn't just bright. It's defining.
That's cool. You can sign some South Carolina people, but make sure all your signings are not legacy WNBA, old WNBA, and you build freaking super team. But yeah, look, this is a funny one. People actually thinking that Sophie Cunningham could be recruiting Erica Wheeler to the Fever. I don't think so. I think for Erica Wheeler's sake, I was so happy seeing Erica Wheeler hoop because Erica Wheeler seems like such a good person. The fit wasn't there. The fit was not there with her and Caitlin Clark. Like, they didn't play well off each other. Heck, my most viewed video on this channel is like Erica Wheeler has ruined the Fever, because when Erica Wheeler was running the point, the team went to shit because she just started walking up the floor and Caitlin was just completely off the ball. That's not a personal thing.
Now let's talk about the Erica Wheeler situation specifically, because the issue in Indiana was never personal. It was about basketball fit. When Wheeler ran the point, the offense slowed down. She would bring the ball up deliberately, initiate sets methodically, and control the tempo. That style isn't wrong. It's just different. The problem was that Indiana's most dangerous version of itself relies on pace, movement, and putting Caitlin Clark in positions to create chaos for defenses. When Wheeler controlled possessions, Clark often shifted off the ball. Instead of orchestrating, she became more of a spot-up option. And while Clark can absolutely shoot, reducing her to a floor spacer limits what makes her special. The Fever's offensive identity is built around her ability to stretch defenses with range, pass on the move, and make quick reads in transition. When that rhythm disappeared, so did the flow. That's why so many conversations centered on the stagnation. It wasn't about Wheeler being a bad player. She's not. She's experienced, tough, and capable of running a team. But stylistically, the pairing didn't maximize Indiana's strengths. The most telling detail came late in her final season with the Fever. Wheeler's best minutes weren't at point guard. They were at small forward. That shift said everything. It showed she could still contribute, but in a different capacity, off the ball, defending, cutting, spacing. In that role, the offense felt more balanced. When she moved to Seattle, the change of system seemed to rejuvenate her. With the Storm, she wasn't fighting the same stylistic tension. She fit more naturally into their structure and looked more comfortable. So if you're evaluating whether she should return to Indiana, the question isn't about respect or history. It's about fit. At this stage in her career, Going back to a system that previously minimized her strengths could feel like a step backward. Sometimes a separation isn't about conflict. It's just about finding the right system for your skill set.
It's a small forward in her final season in Indiana. That being said, though, it's kind of funny one to see, you know, Sophie Cunningham there with Erica Wheeler, because, you know, people are like, oh, it's kind of random, but, you know, Adidas Basketball are sending them there, they're sending them there. So yeah, anyway, that is the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below.
But here's why that All-Star Weekend interaction actually matters more than people think. From the outside, Sophie Cunningham doesn't always look like someone who carries a ton of league-wide goodwill. When she left Phoenix, Mercury fans booed her. The narrative became about loyalty, money, and whether she had turned her back on the franchise. If you only followed the headlines, you'd assume she burned bridges on the way out. But watch how her former teammates interact with her. Watch the smiles. Watch the conversations. Watch who gravitates toward her at league events. That tells a different story. In the WNBA, reputation inside locker rooms often matters more than reputation on social media. Being well-liked among peers is currency. And that's the key word, currency. More than any other major professional league, the WNBA runs on relationships. It's small. Players see each other overseas. They train together in the off-season. They share agents, trainers, and friendships that stretch back to AAU and college. Front offices can put a max contract on the table. But if a player doesn't want to spend 7 months living in your city and sharing a locker room with your core, that offer won't close the deal. That's what makes Indiana's current moment so fascinating. The Fever can offer something no other team quite can right now. Play alongside the league's biggest star, in front of the most engaged fan base, with legitimate championship upside. That's powerful. For competitive players, that's appealing. You get visibility. You get meaningful games. You get to be part of something that feels historic. But there's a flip side. You also inherit the noise, the scrutiny, the social media storms, the debates that have nothing to do with box scores. You become part of the most talked about franchise in the league, for better and worse. That's the pitch. Play in the spotlight. Compete for a title. Accept the backlash. For some players, that trade-off is worth it. Now zoom out, because what's happening with Indiana's offseason isn't just about one team. It's a microcosm of the league's larger tension. You have a collective bargaining agreement negotiation hanging over everything. Public statements from players show visible cracks in strategy. When someone uses the word scabs to describe potential union breakers, that's not casual language. That's an acknowledgement that unity might not be as airtight as it's being presented. Here's the economic reality. Not every player is in the same position. Stars with endorsement deals and international leverage can afford to take a stand. A player on a minimum contract making around $60,000 has a different calculation. A player fighting to stay on a roster bubble might not survive a missed season. When push comes to shove, some players will sign whatever agreement is offered, not because they're weak, but because they need the paycheck. That dynamic exists in every sport. It's just more visible in the WNBA because salaries are lower and rosters are smaller. Now apply that same uncertainty to free agency. Players are making decisions without knowing what the salary cap will be. They don't know the final revenue sharing structure. They don't know whether a work stoppage is looming. In that environment, what do they rely on? Relationships. That's why Sophie Cunningham spending time with Erica Wheeler matters. That's why Marina Mabrey's potential return to Connecticut is tied to Dejanai Carrington's presence. That's why Kelsey Mitchell recruiting Ezii Magbecker isn't just a rumor. It's strategy. In times of uncertainty, players gravitate toward comfort, toward teammates they trust, toward locker rooms where they know the chemistry will be solid even if the business side is unstable. Indiana understands that. They're trying to build a roster of players who genuinely like each other, who aren't deeply entrenched in old league politics, and who can handle the external pressure that comes with being the Fever right now. That personality profile is specific. Alana Smith is an example of what happens when the fit isn't right. Tremendous talent, real skill, but the external noise combined with internal tension spiraled. When her partner publicly validated criticism of the fan base, it created a fracture that was almost impossible to repair. Performance dipped. Fan frustration grew. It became cyclical. Erica Wheeler handled scrutiny better, but the stylistic fit wasn't there. She's at her best controlling the ball, dictating tempo. Indiana needs pace and movement with Caitlin Clark initiating. Wheeler found a better basketball environment in Seattle, where she could play more naturally. Sophie Cunningham is different. She's shown she doesn't internalize outside criticism the same way. Booed in Phoenix? She kept playing. Criticized for physicality? She kept competing. That mental resilience has value beyond her stat line. The same logic applies to a veteran like Tiffany Hayes. Multi-positional, doesn't need high usage, has seen every type of media cycle. That kind of psychological steadiness matters if you're stepping into Indiana's environment. This is where conversations about college pipelines and league networks come in. It's less about any specific school and more about existing allegiances. Long-standing relationships across the league can create subtle divisions, especially during a moment of generational change. Indiana represents new fans, new media attention, and a shift in power dynamics. Not everyone embraces that immediately. Roster construction in this context becomes relationship management. You're not just evaluating shooting percentages and defensive ratings. You're asking, can this player handle being in the spotlight every night? Can they coexist with a massive fan base that includes millions of new viewers? Can they tune out online chaos? When you see players laughing together at All-Star Weekend, that's not trivial. It's groundwork. It's keeping doors open. It's shaping future decisions in a league where everyone knows everyone. The WNBA offseason right now is layered with uncertainty. CBA negotiations, free agency without full financial clarity, potential expansion impacts, and a social media ecosystem that amplifies every move. Indiana sits at the center of it all. Every signing will be interpreted as a statement about Caitlin Clark, about the new audience, about whether players are embracing or resisting the league's evolution. If the Fever can assemble the roster people are speculating about, it won't just be talented. It will represent a group that actively chose the chaos. A team that said, we understand the scrutiny. We understand the pressure. We're in anyway. That kind of shared mindset creates a different bond. Not just we play well together, but we're willing to take the heat together. The basketball will matter. Fit will matter. But at this point, mentality might matter more. Free agency is unfolding. The CBA deadline is approaching. Decisions are being made with incomplete information and maximum pressure. Indiana knows exactly what type of player they need. The question is whether enough of those players are willing to sign up for everything that comes with it.